I think I'll just do quick introductions and then we'll jump right into the good bits. Why everybody's come. I think there will be a few people joining in a moment, but we are recording this and we will be sharing this on our channels tomorrow onwards. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. The purpose of this meeting is for us to get an update on the progress and the next steps for the court case that Adrian will describe for us shortly. We will spend some time just doing a holistic update, the journey so far and which from here, and then we'll do questions at the end. We'll just do about 20 minutes of questions, and we'll take a combination of questions in the chat room as well as over audio. If you have any questions, just raise your hand on the audio. Otherwise, just type it in the window. And then also, if we can't get your questions tonight, you can just email us at contact@daabroad.org. Without further ado, I'll just hand over to Adrian because I know it's late in SA and people try to go to dinner. So Adrian, I'll hand over to you to give us an update of where we are with this issue, if that's okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Ludre. And yeah, greetings to everybody. Thank you for making the time to come out. I'm reporting from a hot and steamy Cape Town after a hot and steamy State of the Nation debate, where the DA, of course, really gave it horns. What I'm going to do, Ludre, is really just go through at a very high level where we're at, and perhaps rather leave some time for more questions and discussions than actually go step by step through what we're going to argue in the Supreme Court of Appeal, because I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, and we just rather focus on that. And so I'm going to kick off, it'll be on the 23rd of February at the Supreme Court of Appeal. And what we're going to be asking for is declaring Section 6(1)(a) of the South African Citizenship Act inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid from the 6th of October. And basically, that section of the Citizenship Act, it says that a South African citizen will cease to be a citizen if, while they're not a minor, and by a voluntary and formal act other than marriage, acquires the citizenship of another country, they lose their citizenship, unless the minister grants them permission to retain it. And then we ask for a declaration that all persons who lost their citizenship in this manner will be declared citizens and will be able to or apply for a citizenship certificate. And so really what the DA argued in the High Court, that this Section 6(1) is irrational, and in that it serves no legitimate government purpose. And so a lot of the argument before the Supreme Court of Appeal is going to be about this, and the fact that there are other provisions which allow citizens to renounce their citizenship, which allow the Minister of Home Affairs to remove citizenship if, for certain reasons, for example, if a citizen of a second country then fights against South Africa in a war, for example. So there are, for legitimate reasons, provisions for that as well. Then the DA also argued against the fact that this operates automatically without notice. And you have a ridiculous scenario at the moment, which some of the participants in this meeting might have experienced, where Home Affairs themselves don't even know that this has happened. So you have a provision that happens and Home Affairs is not entirely aware of it until one day somebody arrives on South Africa's shores and then they sort of find this out. And then really a key issue is that it infringes on Section 20 of the Constitution, which says that no citizen may be deprived of citizenship. And so what Home Affairs argued is that government has the right to regulate the process by which citizenship is acquired and lost, and that this act provides such a mechanism. And they argue that the persons that lose their citizenship in this way, they're aware of Section 6(1)(a), and they intend to give up this citizenship. And the DA ran a substantial poll on this, which was allowed to be considered in the court, which showed that clearly persons did not intend to give up their citizenship. That did not happen. And the key part of the original judgment was the interpretation of the Section 20 of the Constitution, where the court held that what this was saying is that citizens should not be left in a position where they are stateless. So that was their argument. And so basically, once you've acquired another citizenship, you're not deprived of citizenship. You have another one, and you've chosen to now take that one and give up your South African citizenship, and that this loss is not automatic, as the DA argued, but that it happens after some voluntary act. So really, if you look at, and even in the build-up to this webinar, there's been some discussion on social media about this and critics of it. And one of the criticisms is that, well, it's there in black and white. Anybody can go to the SA Citizenship Act of 1995 and go and read through it and see the provision there in black and white. And everybody that's applying through this, they should be able to afford a lawyer, and they surely would have gone to a lawyer who would have informed them of this, or Home Affairs would have informed them of this. And this overlooks the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal in the Willis-Faber-Enthoven case. And here the Supreme Court said that ignorance of the law is no excuse. So that argument is a challenge in South Africa. And it fails to follow well-established and common sense principle that laws must be interpreted with regard to their actual consequences and not some untenable assumptions about perfect human behavior. And what we see, and it's really ironic how the Department of Home Affairs defends this, is that the state often errs in complying with their own laws. So, for example, I had one case of many where a citizen was so-called deprived of their citizenship through this Section 6(1)(a), even though she had gained her other citizenship by marriage. But the official, when she tried to arrive in South Africa, said that, no, you've lost your citizenship. And there was a bit of a backwards and forwards about this that we had to sort out. So even though marriage is there quite clearly as an exception, the official didn't see that and know that. Visa renewals are regularly rejected because the visa was allowed to expire, when we all know that lockdown regulations allowed for automatic extensions, yet somehow these laws are not understood by Home Affairs officials themselves. And then the argument that I had with an official in my own life, where I tried to register my daughter's birth when my wife wasn't there, and the official said I couldn't do it. And I had to point her to the legislation, the court order in this regard, which allowed fathers to also register the births of their child. And I had to phone the Director General to speak to the official, to tell them that there had been this court case and that I was indeed allowed to do it. And this official was horrified because she'd told so many fathers that came to register their births that they couldn't do it. And so this happens a lot. And really, again, I go back to the argument in Willis-Faber-Enthoven, and that this ignorance of the law is no excuse argument. It is a challenge in South Africa. It's an established fact. And then the other issue is that of this right to citizenship, and this was the key of the first judgment in this regard by the High Court. But if you look at this Bill of Rights provision, it says no citizen may be deprived of their citizenship. If you look at the interim constitution, that provision actually said no citizen shall without justification be deprived of their citizenship. And so what the crafters of the Constitution did is they made that provision stronger by taking out those words without justification and changing it to no citizen may be deprived of their citizenship. And so persons can argue that, well, it's there in black and white, but unfortunately it's unconstitutional. It goes against Section 20 of the Bill of Rights provision. And there are many other technical arguments in the heads of argument that the Democratic Alliance will present that talks about this, and the fact that you have other provisions in this Citizenship Act which allows you to do what the Department of Home Affairs say that citizens are doing, that allows you to explicitly, knowingly renounce your citizenship. And so that is another established rule of law is that you cannot have multiple provisions that essentially do the same thing. And so this is some of the rationale that we are trying to use to get that provision struck down. So yes, Ludre, we're going to court on the 23rd. And then, yeah, hopefully we will get justice for the thousands of South Africans that have lost their citizenship without even knowing it. And you know, citizenship, especially with the past that we have, it's a critical thing. It's not something that's traded. It's not something that you say, I want to lose my citizenship. I want to go to the UK and trade my citizenship in for another one. It's a well-established fact in South Africa that South Africa allows dual citizenship. So if you look at the rationality, what is the rationality of having to apply to the minister to retain your citizenship if they have admitted in the papers that they allow it? So what is the justification of that? But it's absolutely critical. And the challenge that we have is the reality of the Department of Home Affairs. The fact that from overseas, depending on who you go through, it can take a few weeks to get this retention of citizenship. It can take over a year. And many South African citizens are starting to give up their citizenship or hand in their passport because it's just becoming so impossible to renew it. And now you're working in a country, you have a work permit in your passport, and you cannot renew your passport. It's taking 18 months to 2 years to renew it. And now after COVID, it's taking months to apply. So luckily in the United Kingdom, there's a bit of reprieve in that regard in terms of VFS and what has been set up there. But in many, many countries, there is still a months-long queue to wait just to go and get an appointment, just to do your renewal, to then wait for 18 months to 2 years to get that document back. And so citizens are taking on a second citizenship just because, for practical reasons. It's not that they've left South Africa and never want to come back, but they've been forced into a situation where they have to go and work overseas. And then they take on a citizenship so that they can stay there and work without having this constant nightmare with Home Affairs to try and regain those documents. But that shouldn't mean that the citizens should have to pay the price of losing their citizenship. That shouldn't be the case. So I think that's it from me, Ludre, and yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Questions and comments.
Absolutely. So we'll open up the floor now for questions and comments. If I can just add to that, as you guys will know, Adrian is the Shadow Minister of Home Affairs for the DA back in SA and in Parliament. And he not only helps us with these various issues around citizenship issues, but also making fire under the Home Affairs Department for the delay in passport renewals and applications. So Adrian is in the face of that entire battle for us. We'll take questions 2 or 3 at a time. I'll read them out if they are in the chat room. And if you want to ask a question verbally, please just raise your hand. Please note, though, that this session is recorded, so please do not mention personal information if you don't want it in public domain. However, if you want to do follow-up with us afterwards, you do have our email contacts, if that's okay. We'll take the first question from Sue. Sue, let me see if I can unmute you, Sue. Sue, can you unmute yourself and then ask a question? Let me see if I can unmute you. Cool. Can you try again, please, Sue, and you can ask a question. Just try and unmute yourself. Okay, now otherwise type it in the chat room and we can ask over there. Let me see if there are any questions in the chat room. I've moved back to Cape Town and I'm in the process of getting my citizenship back. However, I've been told by Home Affairs I need to get a new ID number. If you're successful, can you retain your ID numbers? Adrian, can you comment on that question? Do you need to get a new ID number if you get your citizenship back, please? Do you know that, or can we follow up on that separately? Oh, Adrian, I think you might be on mute. We can't hear you. Yeah, I think it's
great. Thank you.
There we go. Great. Adrian, over to you.
Okay. So unfortunately, Ludra, I can't answer that question, but I will get an answer on that.
Okay, thanks. Sue, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. First of all, Ludre and Adrian, thank you very much for hosting this session, and thank you to the DA for fighting this cause on our behalf. I have a couple of questions. I'm a fairly recent immigrant, so I was just wondering, this is going to the Supreme Court of Appeal as far as I understand. What was the process that led to this? Did the DA take the minister to court originally, and did they have a decision against them?
Yeah, so it starts in the High Court, and then you apply for leave to appeal, and then that leave to appeal gets granted, and then that goes to the Supreme Court of Appeal. On any issue with constitutionality like this one, then even if the Supreme Court rules in our favor, that ruling of unconstitutionality needs to be confirmed by the Constitutional Court.
Right, so even if you get the ruling in your favor, this is going to go to the Con Court as well before we have a final outcome.
Yes.
And that's the process you said you anticipate will take until October.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's taken a while to get here, so it depends on when matters get on the roll, etc.
Right, and now I'm going to ask you, how long is a piece of string? What do you rate your chances in the Supreme Court next week?
Well, I think we rate our chances very well. And yeah, there's a very long heads of argument which very systematically goes through the whole process of why this provision cannot stand, which then it's very sound. So we believe we have an excellent chance and a very, very solid argument, especially if you look at some of the provisions that have been taken out of this act, which make it very clear how you need to interpret the whole design, because there's a design behind law. And then, so for example, in Section 3 of the Constitution, then it talks about how, yes, Home Affairs can determine how do you lose citizenship, how do you acquire it, etc., etc. They can set up those three elements, and those three elements are already accounted for in other areas of this act. So we believe we have a very solid argument, and we expect it to go well. We don't, it's not as if we have a tenuous argument, or we're not putting in any new, well, not new, but a sound submission that we believe is going to be seen favorably. And the difference really between a high court, you have a single judge, the Supreme Court, you have then three, or you have a panel of judges that then look at this and assess it. So that they would look at all the evidence and the interpretation, and then come out with a combined view.
Well, we pray that common sense and logic takes its course next week, and all the best, and thank you once again for fighting on our behalf.
Oh, thanks.
Next in the line is Des. Desled, do you want to go ahead, please?
Hi, everyone. I just want to, it's kind of a question, but just to see if there's truth in this, that for South Africans that have lost their citizenship, is it true that for one of the other methods that South Africans can use is to return back to South Africa and remain there for a year without leaving South Africa, and then after the year you can then reapply? I know that this is not, it's besides the point, but I just want to confirm if this is if there's truth in this statement.
Well, there's, you're able to come back and apply for permanent residence.
Oh. So permanent residence.
It's not automatic. Yeah, it's not automatic, Desiree. I think you have to go through the process. It's not like come back for a year and then it's automatically restored. You would have to go through the process. As it currently stands, we have to go through the process, which obviously we're trying to reverse. But
yes.
but it's permanent residence that you then get.
So it's not even citizenship because those two are different.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, that's bad.
Yeah. Exactly. Thanks, Des.
Well, you've got to ask.
Nick-
Sorry, Ludre. You've just got to ask yourself, what is the rationale behind it again? Now, if somebody's lost their citizenship because they didn't write a letter to the minister who says it's okay that you can have multiple citizenships, what is the rationale? It's just logically irrational. If you intend to give up your citizenship, you do it, and there's a provision for that. So why would you have a provision for that and then another multiple provision for that same thing?
Yeah, I think
You've got to ask yourself, what is the reason behind this?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we can explain what their thinking is, because clearly that we disagree with it on multiple levels. Desiree, can I move on, or did you have any follow-up questions?
Yes, no, just lastly, it's okay to move on, but I just wanted, just as a closing statement to a closing remark to what I've just said, is that my argument has always been that there should be a provision for South Africans who want to abandon South Africa, meaning they no longer want to be South African citizens. If they really have to put some kind of a law in paper, I think they can make a provision for that, so that no one is forced to be a citizen of South Africa if they no longer wish to do so, but not in terms of retaining your citizenship. For me, it doesn't make sense. And I do know of a lot of friends who have lost their citizenship and they've been struggling to have it revived. And anyway they go, the door seems to be closing before them. And even when they're in South Africa, it's almost as if you are being penalized. I think Adrian said that you'll go to Home Affairs and they'll ask you for this and that, and it's a never-ending process. So that's all that I wanted to say.
Thanks, Desiree. Can I just quickly clarify one thing? So I've got the next people in the queue, which is Bruna, Haley, and Cyril. But just to clarify Desiree's point, one more thing, Adrian. So there's a comment that was just made that said there is a possible to resume your membership. I think you just clarified it's not resuming your membership. It is, if you stay there for a year, you can get residency, or otherwise, do you mean is there another way for you to resume citizenship by staying there for 5 years or 10 years? Can you just talk about that process in case there's any further clarification of that?
Yeah.
Adrian?
Okay, so just give me 1 second. Okay. So I'll just figure out just so that I can read it. Okay.
Sorry, I can read it to you.
So-
Okay, cool.
No. Yeah. So basically, you have Section 7. Apart from Section 6 that I've given you, you have Section 7 of the Act, which allows you to renounce your citizenship. So it says, a South African citizen who intends to accept the citizenship or nationality of another country and may make the declaration in the prescribed form renouncing his South African citizenship. Okay, so that's the provision over there. Okay, so that's Section 7.1. This is what Home Affairs is saying that 6.1a is doing, but it's 7.1 does that. Okay. Right,
Yeah,
then we talk about deprivation, then we talk about consequences of the loss. Okay, so whenever a person under provision of Section 8 ceases to be a member, so they're regarded. All right. The minister may at any time unconditionally or subject to conditions as he or she may deem fit, exempt any person from for a definite or indefinite period from the provisions of such subsection 3. And then resumption of South African citizenship. So the minister may, in such cases as he deems fit, withdraw any order made under Section 9, and thereupon the person concerned shall, with effect from such date, resume citizenship if they were deprived by that order. So the minister could theoretically do it on their complete discretion. But then there's a provision later on which talks about that you may resume as a permanent resident. So I just wanted to double check that, but 13.1 says it is not impossible that the minister can grant that you can resume your citizenship.
Regain it, resume it, yeah. Cool. I'm going to go back to the audio questions again, if that's okay. I've got a hand from Bruna. Bruna, if you want to unmute yourself and just go ahead, please.
Okay. Hello. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just want to first say it's evening in I think South Africa right now, and good evening to everybody. So it's afternoon here, and I also just would like to say thank you for letting me talk in your space, and inviting me. And it's just and Mr. Ludre, I've actually been trying to contact you for a while, and you do not respond to my email. So I was just like, okay, let me just. So I wasn't sure what happened, and also Mr. Adrian, I sent you those links of different things. I'm not sure if you know. You remember the whole what's it called? Her name was Nadia Sonapool. That whole situation. And the different Home Affairs officials, and also, unfortunately, our current government can be very hostile towards women like me, and even just women in general, and the LGBTQIA plus community unconstitutionally while hiding behind the false human rights front. So I always like to raise awareness of that, and also as a survivor of gender-based violence, I'm very proud that happy that there's Twitter Spaces now, and people can see I am not just making up stories about the current regime and what they do to us. And yes, and that's also what they did to me a few years ago, and I feel that they're doing it again to me and harassing me the same way they did to Nadia, as a way to get back at me for raising awareness, like on social media, about the human rights, unconstitutional human rights violations. And yes, and they've been very a lot of complaints here, just by South Africans in general, about the Home Affairs back home, and also the embassy staff employed by the ANC over here, because apparently I've been told that they harass us because, like, just in general, not just the LGBT, but also in general, because they are aware that most of us overwhelmingly do not support them and like the DA overwhelmingly. So it's a way to like frustrate us and irritate us enough to get us to like back off or back away and just silence us. And I know a friend, she lives in California. She actually got married here in America, and she actually lost her South African citizenship because she was waiting for that letter that Mr. Ludre was talking about. And it was like a never-ending process, despite the times, despite her applying several times and stuff like that, and waiting months, and they didn't. And she just got frustrated, and she was like, you know what, like, I'm just going to just become American. And she lost her South African citizenship that way, and the officials like to do to South Africans outside South Africa. So yeah, and that's very problematic. So I was just going to ask, if could you please also investigate into those issues, more of the embassy staff, how they treat us and everything like that, and the hostility. And if you look on Google for the reviews, you can see everything that I'm talking about. I'm not just talking crazy and just talking reckless. And yeah, and yes, and the person that you sent me the email, Mr. Adrian, he's not responded to this day. So I just waited to just tell you that. And yeah, I think I'm done talking, and thank you. And thank you for your efforts for trying to help me. And yes, I just always like to like raise awareness, and thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Bruna. Absolutely. And thank you so much for calling in. And I put my email address. I just realized start wrong. Chat again. I'll do it again. So please, by all means, apologies if I missed any emails from you before. But let's see what we can do. Thank Adrian for responding to her previous queries. I think Hayley, you are up next. Yes, Hayley, you are next. Hayley, if you could please keep it short and sweet. We know that you're the expert in this space. Please.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you.
So just very quickly, I'm ex-DA Abroad member and one of the people that started this whole campaign with loss of citizenship. So I just wanted to say, any one of you, I see lots of comments in here about individual cases. I don't want to take it away from the DA, but if you guys need any help with troubleshooting individual cases, more than happy to help. And just wanted to comment on the, I've put a comment in the chat. So if you lose your South African citizenship, if you were born in South Africa, you retain the right to permanent residency. So you can get a letter saying you have the right to permanent residency. You can use that entering South Africa, which means you can stay. You don't have to get a visa, holiday visa stamp, for example. You can stay as long as you like. You can't vote, etc. And if you move back to South Africa, you stay for 12 months. You're not allowed to leave the borders, not going to Lesotho, Swaziland, nothing. Then you can get your citizenship back. You apply to have it reinstated. If you were not born in South Africa, you do not retain the right to permanent residency. So you'd have to get a visa, move back, live in South Africa for 5 years without leaving borders, so no holidays overseas, and then you can apply, which is a really stupid rule. Hopefully everyone wants to move back at some point. I know I do, but yeah, anyone, again, like the UKM route, which is where if you were born before the 1st of January 1983 to a UK born mother, there's rules. It was UK, basically Maggie Thatcher changed the rules with that. Your mother had to register you. If you were born after that date to a UK born mother or father, it doesn't matter. So sorry, I think that was one of the first comments on there. Anyone UK born, UKM route, where you were born to a UK, your mother didn't register you, and you had to, after you turned 18, you then registered your British citizenship, your dual nationality. Basically, South Africa views it that same as everyone else, you've lost your citizenship. So yeah, I don't mind. Hayley,
you can jump in there.
Yeah.
So guys, Hayley will put a social media for you in the chat. She is super useful. She's one of our super overseas volunteers, and like once she's okay, she doesn't let go. So please, I would highly recommend it. But Hayley, I just want to get to the other questions. But Hayley is a wealth of knowledge, guys. We as a DA abroad are not giving any advice or putting it for people. But if you know Hayley, feel free to bend her ear. And move on to the next question to Adrian, please. I've got Cyril in the queue. Cyril, over to you.
Hi. Yeah, I'm in probably I don't know if it's a unique situation. I obtained foreign citizenship in 1992 when I was still living in South Africa. I left South Africa 10 years later. I have subsequently renewed my South African passport where I am now. And they asked me whether I had a letter from the Department of Home Affairs. And I said, no, at that point in time, there was no requirement to get a letter from the Department of Home Affairs. And Home Affairs happily renewed my passport. I don't know what's going to happen going forward because it expires now in 2 years' time. I have subsequently obtained a third citizenship. So I have done, and I have no intention of returning to South Africa. So, and going through the process of getting a South African passport renewed is incredibly difficult because nobody does ink fingerprints anymore. Everything is digital. My other citizenship, I was able to renew my passport online. Took me 2 weeks. So I don't know how this new ruling will affect me next time I come around to apply. Thanks.
Any comments over there? I guess hopefully we win this court case and then people don't lose their citizenship unnecessarily, I guess is the main point. But Adrian, you're the expert.
Look, I think in this case you may renew it, as you say, because it was before the cutoff date of the Act Day. But I think it's really critical. And if you'll just allow me, Ludre, I think we've had a recent poll in South Africa, which shows that the DA is now just 10% behind the ANC, and you could see it in the State of the Nation. Whereas before, the ANC spoke about ideological elements of what they're planning to do in that. They spent the entire time attacking the DA. So they are very nervous. We are right there. And we do need each and every person that can vote to register and to vote. It's absolutely critical now to not give up that South African citizenship and that opportunity that's going to come. It's a reality. It's getting very close now. There's a very high likelihood that there could be a coalition government as early as next year in South Africa, which can change the dynamic dramatically, and each and every vote is going to count. And so please do hold on to that citizenship, do go through it, because to answer what Bruno was saying previously, we are pushing a petition through Parliament in terms of the service that's being received at embassies around the world. And that's obviously one of our top priorities when we take over to sort that out as a caring government. to absolutely sort that out, and things can change dramatically in a very short amount of time. If we each can do our bit and push through just for the next year and a half to start seeing that change happen. Thank you, Ludre.
Thank you. Next in line is Anna. Anna, if you want to unmute yourself and just ask your question, please.
Hi, it's not actually Anna, it's Paul. It's Paul. Anna's my wife.
Okay, Paul.
So I lost my South African citizenship through naturalization in the UK in 2004. We've since come back to Cape Town, well, South Africa, about 8 months ago now, and I'm going through the process of getting my citizenship back, and it's not simple, I can tell you that. The question I have is more along what the lady that was on earlier, who worked for DA abroad. She said when you come back, you need to apply for permanent residency. I actually went through immigration lawyers, and they told me I didn't have to do that. I could just come back to South Africa with the letter that I got from the High Commission in London, basically saying that I lost my citizenship, and I've done that with my family, for that matter. So, did the lawyer get it wrong, or who's right? Is kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Just jump in there. So no, it's if you were born in South Africa, you automatically retain the right for permanent residency. If you were not born in South Africa, then you don't retain the right for permanent residency, in which case you're supposed to get whatever relevant visa to move back and wait 5 years.
Okay. So just to be clear, I don't have to apply for permanent residence.
Can I just jump in over here? Can I just jump in over here, please?
You get a letter from the embassy, so like from the British High Commission, you can request a letter.
I got that in 2004 when they took my citizenship away from me. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Adrian. Adrian, do you want to add any comments to that, please? Or if you have any other comments?
No, fine. It's fine.
Okay,
I'm happy with that answer.
I guess the last thing is saying I can't vote now.
Yeah, so let's get citizenship back, because every vote counts. Every single one counts.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Cool. I'm going to move on to the next people in the queue. Michelle, over to you, please. Just go on mute, and then you can go ahead and ask a question.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick question, because I feel like I had it sorted and then it suddenly changed. I have been on an ancestry visa for 5 years. In a year's time, I'm now a permanent resident in the UK. In a year's time, I can apply for a passport. So in my mind, I'm free and clear until I apply for that passport. But my question is, somebody's just said now, if you were born in South Africa, you retain the right for citizenship. Is that right? Or will I lose it when
you retain the right for permanent residency?
Nelly, I'm going to please ask you to stop responding to the questions on this call, if you don't mind, and I'll hand it over to Adrian. Adrian?
No, that's right. Again, yeah, that's right.
Sorry, I'd missed.
Yeah, so
you retain the right.
The short and long of this, yeah, for now, until the law changes, you should ask for the letter to keep the citizenship. Obviously, we are fighting to take it away, so you always retain it, but between now and until the law changes, you have to make sure you get that letter that says you're allowed to have people. They won't deny it, but you have to still do that admin right now.
Excellent, thank you. So I've at least got a year wait until, because I don't apply for a passport yet for a year. Okay, thank you. Yes. That makes sense. Thanks, Adrian.
Sure. You can do the letter now if you want to, just in case, but cool. All right.
No, but sorry, Ludre, sorry, it's acquiring the citizenship.
Sorry,
you've got to do it before you acquire the citizenship.
Yes. Yeah.
Not before you get the passport.
So well, when I'll do it all at the same time. So I just kind of link the two together. So before I do any change to my current permanent resident status, I need to check in and see what's happening. Okay, now that's easy for me. One instruction for me. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Michelle. Cool. Desiree, over to you again. If you just keep it short, there's because we have other people in the queue as well.
Absolutely. Just for clarity, permanent residency does not allow for a South African passport, right? It's just a letter, doesn't it?
You mean in South Africa? Desiree?
Yes. Once you I think it's Haley there, or one of you guys who are saying that if you do lose your South African citizenship, you by law retain your permanent residency. But then I'm asking, with the permanent residency status, that does not allow you for a South African passport. You can never possess a South African passport again. Is that right?
I'm just going to confirm. Yeah, I can't answer that now.
All right.
I can't answer that now. I can't
Probably-
answer that.
Okay, Adrian, Desiree is part of our DA Broad Ireland committee, so we'll just funnel the question
All right.
back to you. Thanks for
Okay.
that, cool. But just to make for everyone, we have about 30 minutes left in this call, but if you don't get any time to ask your questions, we'll send you our email addresses afterwards. But I'll just move on to Melba. Melba, if you could please unmute yourself and ask a question. Melba, you can start speaking. I can see you're unmuted. There we go.
So I've been in the UK for 15 years and retained my South African citizenship. I also have British citizenship. Are you saying, I got to this meeting late, I'm sorry. Are you saying that we have potentially could lose our South African citizenship? And I just want to add, if it wasn't for the DA, I wouldn't be in this position to be able to retain my South African citizenship and vote as I've done 5 years ago. So I think it's important that we maintain our links with the DA. Thank you.
And did you catch the beginning of that? I think Melba said,
Well,
just confirm, did you get the letter for permission to have dual nationality? Did you get that letter, Melba?
Yes, I did. So
Okay.
you get it, and you also need to retain your South African citizenship. If you don't do that, you lose South African citizenship. And at no point are you advised while applying for your British passport that you need to do that. So I've got many friends who lost their South African citizenship due to ignorance and not being, staying connected to the network of talking to people.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Ludra, in that case, then it's fine. But I think it's interesting that it used to be inside the passport. It used to warn you about this. It used to warn you that you need to retain your citizenship, etc. And then that's been removed for whatever reason. But yeah, Melba, no. So you're fine in that case. And then Rory, I just wanted to answer the previous question. So you cannot get a South African passport on permanent residency. So I just wanted to double check that before I gave that answer.
Thank you, Adrian.
Okay, Adrian. Sue, I'm going to give you a second chance to speak, but there's one more. There's some other people in the queue. Oh, sorry, so maybe there's another hand. Ori, over to you. Just go on mute. There we go.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I actually applied for UK citizenship during the pandemic, and I ended up losing my citizenship to South Africa because I just felt the need to get my UK citizenship. So it's a shame for me, but I was in the process of trying to do the same thing for my parents. And anyways, I got a letter from the UK to basically say that I haven't applied for the citizenship, and sent it over to the South African High Commission. And after that point, they told me that they can't accept the letter because it didn't have my parents' full name. It had their first and last name, but it didn't have the middle name. So I'm not really sure what to do next. I'm gonna have to, well, I have to just go and pay again for another letter just to have the full name in. I can't understand why the letter that fully states their name isn't sufficient enough for the High Commission. Any advice you guys can give me?
Yeah, look, I would just, I can
I
give my
know it's
email.
frustrating.
I can give my email address because the thing that we're fighting during the lockdown is that the citizenship retention was closed for a very long time, which made it then impossible. Yeah. It made it absolutely impossible to do this. So I think it's something that we need to first take up cordially with the minister in this regard, whether that is going to be reversed as is provided for in the Act, because yes, it's something that we were complaining about and saying, but how in the situation where somebody was in the process, now they cannot do this. You're making it impossible for them to comply with the law. And this is what I was talking, going back and saying there were regulations during that time, and now persons' visas are being rejected, etc., unfairly. But I'll leave my email address, or you can contact DA Abroad to forward it. But it's definitely something that I'm going to have to raise with the minister. And thank you for reminding me of that, because this whole conversation has reminded me of that issue at that stage. Unfortunately, with Home Affairs, there are 800 different aspects of it that are all absolutely disastrous. So it's quite difficult to maintain a focus on each individual area. But this is a critical matter that we have to take up with him.
Thanks, Adrian. So, or if you just get in touch with us, either on contact the DA Abroad or my email address in the chat, we'll pass you on to Adrian, and then let's see what we can do. Sounds like there's some room for assistance.
Okay. And sorry to like go back to it as well, but the other point as well about with my parents and the letter not being accepted from the High Commission. Is there any advice, or can I just copy that all in for further advice from you guys in an email? Hello?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Let's see if we can try. Let's see if we can try. Cool. Can I ask, so Judy, if you go and meet and ask a question, please.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much to the DA. One question. When last time I applied for my passport, it was horrendous, took 2 years, as same story we all know. I did say that I also was a British citizen. Nothing was done, and I finally got my passport. If you are still registered as a South African taxpayer, do you think that the South African authorities will deny you citizenship while you are still registered as a South African taxpayer and submitting your tax returns?
That's Adrian's thinking face.
So is the question about if you are no longer a citizen, will you then no longer be a taxpayer?
No, I am still a South African citizen, as far as I know. They know that I'm a UK citizen as well, but I am registered as a South African taxpayer at the moment, and I submit my tax returns to South Africa. So would that be a factor, an influencing factor in them retaining my citizenship, not revoking it, because I'm registered as a taxpayer there?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, well, it's not explicitly stated in the law that has any influence on it.
Okay. So even if I'm paying my taxes there, they can suddenly tell me I'm not a citizen.
I think citizenship law and tax law are two different spheres completely, because they're tax foreign in the country as well. For, if you're foreign in the country, you have permanent residency, that you pay tax. So I think taxes doesn't determine citizenship. But obviously, Adrian, you are the expert in this.
Yeah, no, because the whole thing, if this was a voluntary act, etc., and you were immigrating, then there's a process to financially immigrate as well.
Yeah.
And again, that's not the case here. It's one of these bizarre situations now. Whereas you say you could be there, now you've lost your citizenship. They don't know about it. And then it doesn't kick off this tax process and this official immigration process that needs to take place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Judy. I just have a quick question in the comments. Sorry, no, the question was the statements. Going back to the questions. Sue, did you have a hand up again? No, Des, did you have your hand up, or are those old hands up? Okay, I think those are old hands. Cool.
I hand up a question. Haley did answer in the chat, but I'm trying to understand the logic of Section 6(1)(a). My question was, is this a ploy to strip the vote from citizens who may not support the ruling party? And Haley said, no, it's a common misconception. if it's not that, it's either a money-making ploy or it's just grossly stupidity. It's stupid legislation. Do we have any idea what drove this process?
I wonder, Adrian, if you could insight, what was this just with an admin oversight or the nefarious?
Yeah, look, I mean, in the case, we're obviously talking about the facts and interpretation of the law, and then, you know, everything else is just an opinion on what could the cause be, etc. But one of the things and the challenge here is how the court interpreted this law. But yeah, so it's difficult for me to say for sure and to cast that aspersion. You know, what is Home Affairs doing by trying to do this, by fighting this so hard? When you look at the logic of the whole thing, and it doesn't make sense. There's already a provision to renounce for citizenship. So yeah, I mean, some will say yes, that is the aim of it. Home Affairs might have a different argument. They might say that it's their way of regulating things, but the fact is that the law is constitutionally, it fails on constitutional grounds, and also on some other legal principles that I've explained. So yeah, it's speculation what the intention is, but it's hard to understand what other intention there could be.
Great, thank you, guys. I think we've completed the call. We're on top of the hour. I've put our email contact details in the chat room. If you guys have any follow-up questions or any of the invitations.
Hi, Ludwig. Please, just one question. I won't take too long, I promise.
Okay.
If it's okay. I just wanted to find out how many times does a South African have to apply for retention of citizenship? I know that at the moment, please correct me, South Africa allows a person to have to belong to 3 countries, meaning you can have citizenship of 3 countries. So at the moment, I've applied for citizenship by virtue of being in Ireland, and I've gotten it. So assuming that I'm moving to the US, do I have to reapply again for retention if I'm going to acquire an American citizenship? Or it's a once-off thing, then everything is covered?
Adrian, just once, right?
So sorry, ask that again.
You have to apply.
Sorry, Adrian, go ahead. If you can.
There we go. Yeah, look, it sounded like Haley was going to say something. I mean, if you look at the law there, it says you cannot take on the citizenship of another country without applying to retain your South African citizenship. So it sounds like you have to apply again, because that was what came up today as well. But if you read that provision, it can be interpreted another way, that you can say, well, I have already applied to retain my citizenship and I've been granted that right.
Adrian, just to clarify, every time you apply for a new foreign citizenship, you have to get a new retention letter. So the retention letter will say this person retains their South African when they apply and obtain British, for example. So if you've got Irish and then 5 years down the line you move to Australia or America or whatever, provided that other country allows for multiple citizenship, you have to then get a new retention letter, which gives you permission to keep your South African when you apply for the next.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you could interpret that provision another way.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This is ridiculous. Thank you, guys. Thank you for this webinar. We appreciate the information, and I've sent out the invite to as many people as I could, and I hope that they have been able to be on this webinar as well.
Great, thank you, Des. Adrian, thank you so much for all your daily help in helping all of these individual cases and for the update right now. We look forward to the appeals case on the 23rd, and we'll do a podcast afterwards again to unpack what happened, and what happens in that court case, or in the court hearing at least. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you so much, Adrian, for tonight. We really appreciate it. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Great, thanks.